Between May 17th and May 18th, 2026, the southern and central regions of the People's Republic of China were subjected to an unprecedented convergence of catastrophic natural disasters. An atmospheric conveyor belt of tropical moisture merged over the Yangtze River basin and southern coastlines, triggering record-breaking torrential rainstorms, catastrophic flash floods, and massive geological slope failures across central China, with the absolute epicenter of destruction focused on Shimen County within Changde City, Hunan Province. Simultaneously, the tectonic foundations of South China were severely shaken. The South China block experienced a rare and violent sequence of shallow intraplate tectonic ruptures, culminating in two distinct earthquakes measuring magnitudes of 5.0 and 5.2 on the Richter scale. These quakes struck the Hunan district of Liuzhou City and surrounding areas within the Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region. The compounding nature of these disasters, where mountainous regions in Hunan were systematically liquefied by historic downpours, while the subterranean basements of Guangxi were ripped apart by violent seismic tremors, has created an emergency response crisis of historic proportions. National, provincial, and municipal emergency management agencies have activated high-level emergency protocols to address the widespread destruction of infrastructure, civilian casualties, residential collapses, and the isolation of vast rural populations. The atmospheric dynamics of the May 17th to 18th extreme rainstorm. The meteorological anomaly that unfolded across central and southern China during the third week of May 2026 was described by the China Meteorological Administration, the CMA, as a one-in-a-century convective and stratiform hybrid precipitation event. The structural mechanism behind this extreme system was an atmospheric convergence zone of unprecedented scale, stretching over a continuous 1,000-kilometer rain band. Beginning on the morning of Sunday, May 17th, a slow-moving, deeply anchored low-pressure trough over southwestern China began drawing colossal corridors of precipitable water from three distinct oceanic moisture sources simultaneously. Rich, warm monsoonal vapor from the Bay of Bengal. High-humidity marine air masses from the South China Sea. A strong easterly moisture flux from the subtropical Pacific Ocean. As this hypersaturated air mass encountered the complex, high-altitude topography of the Wuling mountain range in northwestern Hunan Province, rapid orographic lift occurred. The steep mountain ridges acted as a physical wedge, forcing the warm, moisture-laden air to rise rapidly into a highly unstable upper atmosphere. This thermal dynamic generated massive, regenerating mesoscale convective systems, MCS, frequently referred to as train banding events, where severe convective storm cells repeatedly form, mature, and dump their water content over the exact same geographic corridors for hours on end. The localized impact on the Changde Prefecture, particularly within Shimen County and neighboring Liuzhou County, shattered all modern meteorological instruments and historical records kept since the establishment of regional weather observation stations in the mid-20th century. According to the National Meteorological Center, NMC, between 8 a.m. on Sunday, May 17th, and 6 a.m. on Monday, May 18th, a widespread network of automated rain gauges logged catastrophic rainfall values. Fuxing Town, Liuzhou County logged a historical municipal record of 382 mm of total accumulated rainfall within a 24-hour window. Hupingshan Town, Shimen County located in the rugged, ecologically vulnerable high-altitude zones of Shimen, this area absorbed 342 mm of continuous, dense rainfall within the same time frame. The Fuxing cloudburst record, between midnight and 1 a.m. on May 18th, an extraordinary cloudburst dumped 146 mm of rain in a single hour. This astronomical figure officially set a new all-time provincial record for hourly precipitation intensity in Hunan Province, transforming dry mountain hollows into raging torrents of high-velocity water within minutes. Across the wider nation, the NMC noted that 40 major meteorological stations recorded extraordinarily heavy rain, surpassing the 250 mm threshold within 24 hours, while 628 regional stations registered standard torrential rain status. 2 national-level stations entirely broke their absolute historical precipitation records, and 81 national stations set new benchmarks for the highest rainfall ever observed during the month of May. The Liuzhou River inundation and hydrological collapse. The relentless downpour directly triggered a catastrophic hydrological collapse of the Liuzhou River basin, a vital tributary system winding through Shimen County. By the early hours of May 18th, the volume of runoff cascading down the deforested slopes and saturated valleys of Hupingshan completely overwhelmed the capacity of the river channel. Automated water level sensors monitored by the Hunan Hydrological Bureau recorded water levels surging past the guaranteed safe water level by more than 4.5 meters, marking an absolute historic peak. As the Liuzhou River breached its levees, high-velocity flash floods tore through low-lying agricultural plains, suburban settlements, and industrial centers across Shimen County. In the valley communities, single-story residential dwellings were completely submerged up to their rooflines, while the ground floors of multi-story urban concrete buildings in Shimen's central towns were inundated with 2 to 3 meters of thick, muddy water mixed with agricultural debris and urban waste. On the morning of May 18th, local state media and citizen dispatches via digital platforms like Douyin illuminated the terrifying scale of the waterlogging. Main streets had completely converted into wide, rushing rivers. In broader urban sectors of Changde, cars were left entirely floating or stacked on top of one another against utility poles, while local citizens were observed trying to navigate submerged commercial blocks where fish from overflowed fish farms and rural reservoirs were actively swimming through the inundated thoroughfares. Saturated mountain slopes and catastrophic landslides. While the valleys faced inundation, the high-altitude mountainous terrain of Shimen County experienced widespread geological instability. The local geological composition, dominated by weathered sedimentary rock strata and thick layers of topsoil, became completely liquefied under the weight of the 342 mm rainfall accumulation. This process of extreme pore water pressure expansion systematically undermined the structural integrity of the mountainsides. Throughout May 17th and the pre-dawn hours of May 18th, dozens of catastrophic landslides, mudflows, and rockfalls occurred along the steep valleys of Hupingshan town and adjacent rural corridors. Massive mass-wasting events sent tens of thousands of cubic meters of liquid mud, boulders, and uprooted pine forests roaring down into rural hamlets. In multiple mountain passes, entire segments of hillsides sheared away cleanly, completely burying rural homesteads and blocking the natural flow of smaller mountain creeks, creating highly dangerous quake lakes or landslide barrier dams that threaten downstream villages with sudden outbursts. Along major transportation corridors, heavy boulders weighing several tons broke loose from rocky bluffs, pulverizing retaining walls, smashing into rural vehicular paths, and destroying critical electrical transmission pylons. The human and structural toll inflicted upon Shimen County during these 48 hours of environmental terror was severe. Local authorities confirmed that within Shimen County alone, the initial wave of flash floods and landslides on May 17th left 1 resident dead, and 2 others missing after their home was swept away by a sudden mountain mudflow. The structural damage to infrastructure paralyzed the county's ability to communicate and move. Transportation gridlock. The Shimen County Public Security Department and local traffic authorities were forced to implement emergency, sweeping temporary road closures across all major provincial roads and county highways on the morning of May 18th. This was necessitated by extensive slope collapses, active rockfalls, and multi-kilometer stretches of road beds being completely washed away by river course alterations. All intercity and rural bus services were officially suspended. Logistical isolation. Bridges connecting isolated agricultural villages to the urban centers of Shimen were either structurally compromised by structural scouring or completely overtopped by raging torrents, rendering thousands of rural residents physically isolated without immediate overland access. Power and telecom blackouts. The physical destruction of electrical poles and the flooding of low-lying substations knocked out power grids across multiple townships in northern Shimen, plunging thousands of families into darkness, and severing cellular and digital communication networks precisely when emergency alerts were most critically required. Tectonic context of South China's intraplate fractures. While central China was drowning under historic cloudbursts, the ground fractured violently further south. On the night of May 17 and into the day of May 18, 2026, the Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region was rocked by a rare, highly destructive sequence of shallow intraplate earthquakes. Unlike plate boundary zones such as the Himalayas or Taiwan, Guangxi sits within the interior of the South China Block, a region characterized by lower frequencies of seismic activity but a high vulnerability to shallow, high-intensity crustal ruptures along ancient fault systems, such as the Yujiang Fault Zone and the Lingshan Fault Network. Because these intraplate structures occur at exceptionally shallow depths directly beneath populated agricultural and industrial valleys, even moderate magnitude events generate highly destructive ground acceleration. Chronology of the Liuzhou seismic events. The China Earthquake Network Center, CENC, and the United States Geological Survey, USGS, tracked a rapid, compounding sequence of seismic ruptures centering primarily near the Hunan district of Liuzhou City, a major industrial hub in northern central Guangxi. At exactly 16:21 Universal Time, coordinated on May 17, which corresponded to the pre-dawn hours of 0:21 a.m. local time on Monday, May 18, the first major shock registered, as a magnitude 5.0 earthquake. The epicenter was scientifically plotted at 24.457 degrees north latitude and 109.218 degrees east longitude, placing the point of maximum energy release roughly 24 kilometers northwest of Liuzhou City. The focal depth was calculated at a shallow 10 kilometers, sending violent, high-frequency S-waves directly into the sleeping city and surrounding rural counties. Residents across Liuzhou reported being awoken by sudden, vertical jolts followed by sustained horizontal swaying that caused household items to crash from shelves and plaster to rain down from ceilings.